Alright, so for this video, it'll be an introduction to the chess project. Here you've got my very beautiful chessboard. So if you'll notice, I'm not doing any drag or drop. That's a little bit beyond the scope of what we actually want to teach you. Um, Whenever I click on a piece, you'll notice that it highlights all the places it can go to. It's kind of similar to checkers. I highly recommend that you have it um, highlight the entire time you're developing. It'll make a huge difference for debugging so you can actually see what on earth your pieces are thinking. Um, Now, for those of you who don't know chess very well, there are 6 different pieces. You've got pawns like these. Um, Pawns are a little bit special. They typically can only move one space unless they haven't moved before. If they haven't moved before, they can move twice. They can move up to 2 forward. However, they can't attack forward. They can only attack diagonally. So let's say we've got these two guys here. This piece can't move, and it's got nobody to attack. Pawns can attack diagonally one square in front of them. So for black, that's down this way. For white, it's going back up. Next, you've got bishops. Bishops can move diagonally in any direction. Then you've got rooks, which can move laterally in any direction. They can move up, they can move down, they can move sideways. But they can't move diagonally. Then you've got queens, which are kind of a combination of both the rooks, which are the little castles here, and the bishops, and that they can move both diagonally and laterally. So it can move up, down, left, right, diagonally, in any direction. So they're pretty much the most powerful piece. Then you've got knights. They're special because they're the only piece that can jump over other pieces. Now, knights are a little funky the way they move because they can actually move laterally by 2 and then to the side 1. So to the side 2 and then either side of that square. Up 2, either side of that square. To the right 2, either side of that square. Down 2, either side of that square. It can't move there, but it can move to either side thereof. Then we have, finally, the king. The king can move one space in any direction. However, the way I've got it running right now is I've set it up so that the king can't move anywhere where he could be taken by other pieces. So let's just open that up. So that queen is blocking all these spaces, and then the king is blocked up by that pawn, so he can move here. And now that the queen's out of the way, you can move all these other places except for here, because that king's in the way. You notice on the side, I've got this history running. That's an optional feature. I've also got an undo redo thing going on. So if you're feeling adventurous, you can feel free to build that up. Alright, so the very first step in making this project is making the chessboard. Now, an important thing about this project is we want you to make this chessboard responsive. So it'll change sizes and still look nice no matter what size the screen is. So something that you should keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how to make everything responsive is VW. A lot of times we're going to use percentages or pixels to decide the width or height of things. VW stands for viewport width. It's an alternative unit that we can use that I highly recommend using to decide the width and height of all the pieces on the board, as well as of the sizes of the squares of the board. Additionally, one of the easiest ways to get these fancy chess pieces up here is through something that's called Unicode. Now, Unicode is a series of special symbols that are sort of built into a lot of computers, and there are special Unicode codes for all the chess pieces. So you can actually go and create images using these codes. However, JavaScript, when it was created, wasn't made in such a way that it could use the whole scope of all the Unicode characters. So over here, I'm giving you a freebie, which is a set of nested functions that will allow you to use these same chess codes, these same Unicodes. So if I want to have the white king up here, I would use 2654, put that there, and this would return a character that would look, instead of looking like a letter, it would look like a king, a white king. Now the requirements for the project. First off, you're going to make a responsive chessboard. Then we're going to make a piece object constructor. So this is, you're going to make a new type of object called piece, and it's going to have a constructor that will take, for example, the x and y coordinates, what type of piece it is, and you're also going to build some functions onto that depending on how you want to design your game. You're going to put those onto the prototype. So I highly recommend that you first build the rook and bishop constructors and have them then inherit from piece. The way that I built my chessboard was that I created a get targets function for each type of prototype. I have a rook prototype, a knight prototype, bishop prototype, queen prototype, a king prototype, and a pawn prototype. And each of them has their own implementation of a get targets function. Now that get targets function will take a two-dimensional board state array, and given the location of the pawn, it's going to say, all right, the two places you can go are here and here. And it returns that, and then using that information, I then color it on the board. So I highly recommend that that's the way that you go about deciding where pieces can go. So first off, do the rook and bishop, then do the queen. The queen, hint, is really just whatever the rook can do plus whatever the bishop can do. Then the knight constructor, which will be a little bit fun math-wise, but really isn't too hard. Now the pawn, that's a real special one, because it doesn't, the places it can move aren't the places it can attack, and the places it can attack aren't the places it can move, and it can only, and if it hasn't moved yet, it can move 2 spaces forward. Then creating the king constructor, which is just 1 space any direction. Next, populating the chessboard with all the pieces. And remember this Unicode set of functions that I gave you there. And then when you click a piece, highlight its square and squares it can move to, just like it's doing right here. Next, allow pieces to move on the board and capture other pieces, just like this. And then only allow a player to move one of its pieces if it's his turn. And then, as the final, most trickiest one, prevent the king from moving or capturing into check. So you can't ever let the king move somewhere where he could be attacked by another piece. Now, if you've got a whole bunch of extra time after that, you will, but these are valuable things to think about how you would possibly implement them. I also made a list of other optional things you could do. So like me, you could display the match history, showing all the things that happened. You could also implement undo and redo. You could not let a player end a turn with the king in check by automatically undoing any move that results in a king being in check. You can implement castling and en passant, and you can also implement a check for checkmate button, seeing if someone's won. This is very hard to do, so if you pull that off, I really want to see it. You'll have done some really cool programming. There are all sorts of other crazy things, including creating a very stupid AI that will play against you. Alright, so this is the chess project, and you're going to learn so much about Prototype once you're done. Good luck.